Yay! Hello, friends at home. This morning we had a jar full of pom-poms, and everybody made a guess as to how many they think are in this jar. So we are starting estimating. We're going to do some more with it tomorrow. So all of our friends have their estimates, and you're going to hear them tell what they predicted. So if you want to kind of look at it, you can make your own prediction to yourself at home. And then we'll find out how many are actually in the jar. Okay, Elijah, what was your estimate? 50. Snejana? 29. Emma? 20. Eden? 28. Camden? 48. 99. 38. And Lake predicted 60. So let's see who got the closest without going too high. I'm going to count them out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. Raise your hand if we have already gone over your estimate. Okay, so we're about half. So knowing that that's 30, think to yourself, don't say it out loud, just think if you think your estimate is going to be close or too low or too high.
Too low.
31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50, 51, 52, 53, 54, 55, 56, 57, 58, 59, 60, 61, 62, 63, 64, 65, 66, 67, 68, 69, 70, 71, 72, 73, 74, 75, 76, 77, 78, 79, 80, 81. So raise your hand if you guessed less than 81. Less. If you guessed less than 81. Thought you guessed 99.
No, he guessed 99.
You guessed 99? What did you guess?
I guessed 38.
Oh.
Mine was 48.
So raise your hand if you were too low. Raise your hand if you were too high.
A little too high.
Okay, what was the closest guess to the correct answer?
I said me?
Lake guessed 60. Lake, you guessed closest to the correct answer without going over, so you are the winner of the estimation. Woohoo! Well done. It was 81.
So I'm going to be a second grader?
You are in a week and a half.
It went over. I still thought Luke won.
Okay, so tomorrow we are going to have another jar, and you guys are going to make another estimate.
Is it going to be filled with mama?
Nope. And then And then you're going to find out how close what was the difference between the real answer and your answer. And then my 4th and 5th graders are going to have some other stuff to do with the information that the class collects from their estimations. Okay?
I feel like it's going to be B.
So tomorrow, we are going to do this again and then take it further. Alrighty, we are going to finish reading Macbeth. Who can tell me what happened yesterday?
Macbeth killed the king.
Macbeth killed the king. Eden?
His wife was telling Macbeth to kill the king, and he was really scared. Oh, and he saw those witches who were telling him he was going to be the king. And then he killed the king. Then the princes left because they were like, whoever killed him is gonna be killed next. We'll be killed next. And so they left and hid. And then Macbeth became king, and his friends noticed that he did it.
So his friend Banquo thinks he's on to Macbeth and thinks that Macbeth had something to do with this murder plot. Okay, so now Macbeth has been king for a few days, and let's see what happens next. As darkness fell, Banquo and his young son Flance rode up to the palace. They tethered their horses and walked slowly towards the gate through the deep shadows cast by the palace walls. What does it mean that they tethered their horses?
They tied them to a rope.
They tied them up so they couldn't run away. Banquo thought he heard a sound, a low murmur that suggested someone was nearby. He looked over his shoulder anxiously. The next thing he knew, 3 men were on top of him, stabbing him in the chest. Flance cried for help and threw himself at the scuffle, desperate to save his father. "No, Flance, get away," gasped Banquo. "Run, live to avenge my death." So as his dear father breathed his last breath, Flance scrambled to his feet and ran for his life into the darkness. Who do you think planned for Banquo to be killed?
Macbeth.
Maybe Macbeth. Who else could have done it?
His wife.
Maybe Lady Macbeth. She's pretty evil and rotten.
Because she wants to be the queen. Can I go to Scotland?
Inside the palace, Macbeth's guests took their places around the dinner table. "Welcome to the palace," Macbeth announced cheerfully, but he couldn't help looking at the empty place halfway down the table. "Please excuse me for a moment," he said. He hurried over to the doorway where a shadowy figure was waiting for him. "Is it done?" he whispered. "We killed Banquo, sir," said the man, "but I fear his son escaped." Macbeth's heart sank. "You'd better go," he said. "I'll meet you tomorrow." As he turned back towards the table, pasting a smile onto his face, Macbeth saw something that made his blood run cold. There was someone in Banquo's place. It was Banquo. How can it be Banquo when Banquo is dead?
Maybe someone.
Do you think it is the ghost of Banquo?
Yeah. I've seen this one in Where's Will?
His throat was slit and his hair was matted with blood, yet he did not seem to be in pain. He sat very still, looking Macbeth in the eye and smiling. "What's wrong, Your Majesty?" asked Lord Lennox. Banquo," Macbeth faltered. "It seems he's a little late," said Lennox. "We're saving this empty seat for him." But, began Macbeth. Then fear and horror overcame him. "Don't look at me like that!" he screamed at the ghost. "It wasn't me! What do you want? Get away from me!" Lady Macbeth stood up. "I think my dear husband is having one of his turns," she announced to the startled guests. "It's quite normal. He'll be better in a second." "Can't you see?" shouted Macbeth. "Look! He's there! He's right in front of us!" "I think we better leave, my lady," said Lord Ross. "The king is not well." They all got up awkwardly and made their farewells, wishing Macbeth better health. "What is wrong with you?" hissed Lady Macbeth as soon as everyone had gone. Didn't you see Banquo? He's right there in that seat, but he's gone now. I didn't see anyone, snapped his wife. No one did. You need some sleep. I can't sleep, said Macbeth. I've got to get rid of anyone who knows, like Macduff. He must know. That's why he wouldn't accept my invitation to the feast. I'll go see the witches tomorrow. I'll ask them what to do. Macbeth, shut up, his wife said. You're going crazy. Let's just get some sleep. At last she persuaded him to retire to bed. But Macbeth wasn't entirely crazy. He was right about one thing. Macduff did suspect something. At that moment, he was not at home in Fife, but in London, where Duncan's son Malcolm was staying with the King of England. They were making plans to wage war on Macbeth and return the throne of Scotland to its rightful heir. The following day, Macbeth stood on the cold, misty moor at the spot where he first saw the witches. Where are you? He called. Witches, I need to speak to you. We are here, said a woman's voice as the three figures slowly came into view. Macbeth saw that they were sitting around a huge black cauldron, adding mysterious ingredients to a bubbling mixture inside. We can read your mind, Macbeth, said the oldest witch, and we know what questions you bring. Here are your answers. As Macbeth stared, a dark form rose out of the cauldron. It soon took the shape of a soldier wearing a heavy battle helmet. He turned to face Macbeth, and his eyes glowed as he whispered, Macbeth, 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 beware Macduff. I knew it, Macbeth said. Silence, said the oldest witch. Behold, the soldier had gone, and in his place floated a newborn baby. Eerily, it also began to speak. Macbeth, 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 laugh to scorn the power of man, for none of woman born shall harm Macbeth. Macbeth began to smile. If no one who has ever been born can harm me, I'm safe, he said. And then another vision appeared, a child carrying a branch. The child sang, Macbeth shall never be destroyed until great Birnam Wood walks to Dunesane Hill. Macbeth almost laughed with relief. Well, that's not going to happen, he said. I'm definitely safe. But then he heard a crash of thunder, and to his horror, Banquo's face hung in front of him. Banquo! Macbeth roared. No! Get out of my sight! And he slashed at the ghost with his sword, but the witches and the visions had suddenly disappeared. Your Majesty? Lord Lennox was riding up to him. I bring news. Macduff has fled to England. Thank you, Lennox, said Macbeth calmly. But when Lennox had gone, he snarled. I was right all along. It's time to show Macduff who he's up against. In London, Macduff was talking to Malcolm, Duncan's son. Scotland needs you, Malcolm, he urged. You're Duncan's heir, and you must take what's rightfully yours. I know, said Malcolm, and with your help, I'm prepared to try. We have 10,000 men ready, and we'll set off for Scotland at your word. My Lord Macduff, a quiet voice interrupted them. It was Lord Ross. My dear Ross, cried Macduff, striding over to his friend. What news from home? Bad news, Ross said, looking at the ground. Macduff, I bring such terrible tidings. I'm afraid to tell you. He was almost trembling in tears. What is it, said Macduff. Bad news for who? For you, said Ross. Your wife, your children, Macduff, they've been murdered. Macduff's face was white. My wife? My children? Macbeth's men broke into your castle, said Ross. I'm so sorry. Avenge them, Malcolm said, looking Macduff in the eyes. I will, Macduff said, his voice almost a whisper. I will kill him. It's like this every night, said the lady-in-waiting, showing the doctor into Macbeth's palace. She walks in her sleep, talks to herself. We don't know what to do. Look, here she comes. As they watched, Lady Macbeth emerged from her bedchamber in her white nightgown. Her eyes are open, said the doctor. But she doesn't see us, the lady explained. She just wrings her hands again and again and says strange things. Shh, listen. Will these hands ever be clean? Cried Lady Macbeth in a hollow, haunted voice. Who would have thought the old man to have had so much blood in him, she went on, wailing. My hands still smell of blood. All the perfume in the world will never sweeten them. Wash your hands and put on your nightgown. Banquo's buried. He cannot escape from his grave. I don't know what she's talking about, said the doctor, but it doesn't sound good. Indeed, said the lady, for all her riches, I wouldn't change places with her. She's seen things she shouldn't have, that's for sure. What has Lady Macbeth been doing? She's been sleepwalking and talking in her sleep about having blood on her hands and murdering people.
What's murdering?
Killing somebody.
On purpose.
They're coming, shouted the lookout excitedly from the top of the hill. The English are coming. Lord Lennox exchanged glances with Lord Ross. I'm all for joining the English forces and helping Malcolm retake the throne, he said. Ross nodded. The sooner we get rid of Macbeth, the better, he agreed. I hear he's holed himself up in Dunsinane Castle. Malcolm's armies are heading for Birnam Wood. We'll meet them there. In the hall of Dunsinane Castle, Macbeth paced the floor, frowning furiously. No man of woman born can harm me, he said to himself over and over again. Birnam Wood will not come to Dunsinane. A messenger hurtled in through the door, white-faced with terror. I bring news, Your Majesty, he panted. Malcolm's army is coming. They have 10,000 men, sir. Coward, yelled Macbeth. Scared, are you? Well, Macbeth isn't scared. Bring me my sword at once. Prepare for battle. And what do you want? He barked fiercely, turning toward the doctor. Your wife is most unwell, Your Majesty, said the doctor quietly. She's seeing things. Well, you're the doctor, Macbeth snapped, so cure her. Now, where's my sword? At Birnam Wood, just a few miles from Dunsinane, the English armies had gathered. Rank upon rank of men stood armed and at the ready, their helmets and swords glinting in the sun. These are my orders, Malcolm told his generals. Each man is to cut a branch from this forest and use it to camouflage himself as we make our way to Macbeth's stronghold at Dunsinane. At my command, we will throw down our disguise and attack. An excellent plan, Your Highness, said Macbeth. What's wrong with you, Macbeth shouted at the few soldiers who had not yet deserted him. You're cowards, all of you! The men shifted uncomfortably in their battle gear, trying to look brave. Then a servant came in. My lord, he said, Lady Macbeth is dead. She's killed herself. Macbeth stared at him for a moment, but he had no time to reply before a guard from the lookout tower rushed in, his face white with shock. Your Majesty, he trembled, I've just seen something amazing. What? Come on, man, what is it? Birnam Wood, the guard began. Well, I know it sounds strange, sir, but I think it's moving. Liar! Screamed Macbeth. Come on outside, all of you. We'll take our chances in the battle. I will not surrender. Outside on Dunsinane Hill stood Malcolm's men, disguised by the leaves and twigs of the branches they had cut from Birnam Wood. They had left it almost bare. Throw down your branches, Malcolm yelled. Attack! And with a huge roar, the soldiers threw aside their camouflage and surged down across the hillside to the castle. Let me ask you this. Were the woods really moving?
No.
Why did it? It was the men disguised in tree branches from Birnam Wood.
So we're going to be killed?
The prophecy has come true.
Who was going to?
Remember it said that Macbeth, no one could harm Macbeth unless Birnam Wood came to Dunsinane. So Birnam Wood is the forest. Dunsinane is a castle. So he's like, well, that's never going to happen. How is a forest going to come to the castle? Well, now it is. For all his evil ways, Macbeth was still a great soldier and a deadly swordsman. He took on all comers, slashing right and left with his blade until dozens of English soldiers lay dead. But the attacking forces breached the castle, overcoming the guards and forcing their way across the drawbridge. Soon Macbeth alone was left to fight the 10,000-strong army. But there was only one man who could kill him. "Where is he?" growled Macduff, pressing forward through the throng. "I must avenge my wife and children." He spotted his enemy by the drawbridge, and he drew closer. He yelled out, "Macbeth, turn to face me!" Macbeth spun around. "Macduff," he said, recognizing his old friend. "I'm here to take my revenge," Macduff roared, and he lunged forward. "Save your strength, Macduff," Macbeth panted as his swords clashed and clanged. "You can't hurt me. I live a charmed life." He dodged and parried, wielding his blade defensively. "Yes, Birnam Wood has come to Dunsinane, but the witches told me clearly, no man born of woman can harm Macbeth." "Well," snarled Macduff, "perhaps they forgot to tell you that Macduff was never born. My mother died before I could be born." He pinned Macbeth up against the castle gateway. "I was cut from her lifeless body," he added, by way of explanation. "Ready to surrender yet?" "Never!" Macbeth roared. So Macduff raised his sword, gripped it with both hands, and swung it with all his might. "Hail, King of Scotland!" Macduff cried, tramping into Malcolm's battle tent. "The battle is over! The tyrant is dead!" And he threw Macbeth's head onto the ground, where it tumbled across the earth and rolled to a stop at King Malcolm's feet. The end.
Oh, there's Romeo and Juliet. Wait, did we already finish the Romeo and Juliet?
So what do you
Yeah.
think? Comedy, tragedy,
Comedy.
history? Do you think this is a true story?
Yes, history.
Comedy.
History.
This one can kind of go a few different ways.
I say it's tragedy.
Well, no, it can't be history because there's
I'm
witches.
gonna look.
Because
There's
there's
a
witches.
This could go a few different ways if you ask me.
It could be history because witches aren't. Well, they could just be just.
You're gonna kill the moth. The moth is already dead.
The full title is The Tragedy of Macbeth. So this is a tragedy.
Comedy.
It's thought to have first been performed in 1606. And it is a drama depicting the damaging physical and psychological effects of political ambition on those who seek power.
But everybody literally.
So basically, if you are so power hungry that you will do whatever it takes to get to the top, it's not going to end well for you. That's the moral of this story. Now I'm just going to read you, the last thing we're going to do is read the original written witches scene because that got left out and it's very famous.
Oh, that.
Let's see.
We did that in our play, right?
Mm-hmm.
Except we mixed up a lot of plays together.
Maybe we can listen to it.
Round about the cauldron go, in the poisoned entrails throw. Toad that under cold stone, days and nights has 31. Sweltered venom sleeping got, boil thou first in the charmed pot.
characters from a play of somebody putting on
They sound very weird.
They weren't
Macbeth.
terrible.
The double part, terrible.
Double, toil and trouble, fire burn, and cauldron bubble. And then it goes through all the ingredients, which is a lot.
Soup is my favorite.
It is a lot. It's like 10,000.
Okay, so now Miss Jen, do you want to show them what you have for art?
Sure.
All right, friends at home, I'm signing off.